delays that we're seeing in clinical trials across the industry. What do you expect this will mean down the line in terms of getting new medicines through the approval process and out to patients?
Yeah, it's great to be with you as always, Meg. Sorry it has to be remote today. So as you pointed out, pretty much all of the companies in the industry are going to see some impact on their clinical trials. It's early days still, so hard to predict how much. We announced this morning that we do expect to see some impact on the trials, but it'll be very different for the different trials. Some of our trials require medical centers. Obviously, they'll be more impacted. Others are more remote. They'll be less impacted. The bottom line for us is that all trials that we have going are ongoing, but we may temporarily pause enrollment of new patients. And the principle here is pretty simple. I think we're operating with three goals in mind. One, we want to protect our patients. We don't want to expose patients in clinical trials to COVID-19 infection. Two, we want to optimize the allocation of healthcare resources because we certainly don't want critical healthcare resources that should be used for COVID-19 to be used on our clinical trials. And then finally, we, of course, need to maintain the integrity of our trials with regulators. So I think it's a little early to say what's going to happen. Everything depends on how quickly all of us get back to a more normal life and the COVID-19 outbreak resolves. But I think we can certainly expect to see some impact on some trials across the industry.
And as we are seeing that potential delay, what are you seeing as the CEO of a drug company who evaluates data every day, including very early stage data, as you look at what's available on things like hydroxychloroquine, on remdesivir, on the potential antibody treatments in clinical trials now? It's early data, but how much promise would you say there is now, and how soon could we see something that might actually work?
Yeah, again, very early days, but I think it's important to take a step back and remember that literally within days to weeks of the outbreak starting in China, we had identified the viral agent and sequenced the virus, and we're already designing new kinds of vaccines and testing drugs. That's remarkable, and it's really a reflection of the tremendous advances in biotech science that have occurred over the last decade or so. That would not have been possible 15 years ago. And if you think about the new drugs and new approaches, we sort of think about them in two buckets, Meg. One is to look for existing approved drugs that might be active against the virus. And as you know, there are a number of those that are being tested. If we could find one of those, we're literally talking about months before we could make such a drug available to patients. That's the shorter term solution, the best case scenario. The other thing that we're doing, obviously, as an industry is looking for new vaccines and antibody treatments. Those take a bit longer. That'll be 9 to 12 months because we have to test them not only for their efficacy, but also to make sure they're safe to give to patients. But regardless of whether it's 6 months or 12 months, I'm very confident it's just a matter of time until we do find a treatment for this virus.
Well, we know that Vertex, as well, is stepping in to try to help the community in Boston, where you're based. You are contributing to the Boston Resiliency Fund. Tell us about that and about what industry's responsibility and role is to help communities in that way.
First, as you mentioned, we have been very fortunate at Vertex because we are seeing literally no effect of the outbreak on our business. That's because we've designed our supply chain to ensure we can continue to get our medicines to patients, and also because our patients have underlying lung disease, so they take their medicines in a very diligent way. But the other part of the response, I think, from industry in general is to be good civic citizens and help out in the community. And I've been working as a sort of unofficial advisor to Mayor Walsh here in Boston. We talk a couple times each day. And our first order of business was to make sure that we got all of the shelter-in-place orders, the shutdowns, the social distancing guidelines right, and he did a tremendous job there. But then we started talking on March 14th or so and saying, look, we know there are going to be a lot of cases. We know there will be cases in our cities and some of our most vulnerable neighborhoods. What else can the private sector do to help? And there were three things that became obvious to us. One was food. We're going to have a need for food for patients who are either quarantined or infected in their homes, and for kids who now are not able to get food at school sometimes. Basic medical supplies, obviously very important. And then home education, again, for those kids who've been sent home, and all the Boston Public School kids and kids across Massachusetts have been sent home. So we came up with the idea of raising what we call the Boston Resiliency Fund. We thought we'd try to raise initially $10 million. Vertex kicked it off with the Vertex Foundation making $1 million gift. And then I called a couple of my friends, Jack Connors and Ann Klebanski, two of the business leaders here in Boston. And we went out. It's been really remarkable, Meg. Within the first day of announcing the fund, we surpassed our $10 million goal. And a week later, we were over $20 million, and we're still moving north. And I think it's just a real testament to how the Boston business community comes together in a time of crisis. They did it in the Marathon bombing case. They're doing it now, and it's just very heartwarming to see the business community come together in that way.
Well, it is good to hear, Jeff. Thank you for joining us. It's nice to hear good stories of kindness and people coming together as we're all in such a scary time right now. Thanks for being with us.
Thanks, Meg.
And Meg, our thanks to you as well. Meg Tirrell with the CEO of Vertex. Again, there will be impacts from the focus on coronavirus to other drugs that were in the pipeline.